Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Well, hello and welcome to Spirit Cafe. Today is Blind Topic Day. It's the day where I get to throw blind topics at my co-host and see what her thoughts are on the subject. But before I do that, I should introduce my co-host in compassion. I forget all the list of things I made for her last time, and we'll just pretend I said them all. It's wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you my good friend, my co-host, Tamara Zoner. Good morning, Tamara Zoner. How are you?
Good morning, John Davis. I'm great.
Great.
Excited and curious, and yeah, can't wait.
Yeah,
to
it's
find out what this podcast is about today.
I love the fact that you don't know. I think it's going to be lovely. Let me take a sip of my coffee for a second.
Sure. No problem. I love adventures. So,
well, it's an interesting topic, and it's a topic that's been coming up for me for a little while, and I really would like your insight on it.
let's hope I have some.
You have yet to fail me, so it's good. So let me give you a little backstory on this, okay? So when I was doing my spiritual work 15 years ago, the reason I quit doing the spiritual work is because people were really not ready to hear it. And what was interesting was it got to the point where they would hear about my past life, but they wouldn't hear what I was trying to share with them, the real teachings. They got real invested in meeting the reincarnation of blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, so I stopped doing the work because I felt like I was being a crutch, and I don't think it's helpful because it's all about empowering the individuals. So now I'm back, and I'm full bore into doing my spiritual work and my spiritual quest, as it were. And I have noticed a massive shift in humanity. And I mean to the point where it's mind-boggling, the change between then and now. And people are so much more into the finding out their own power, stepping into their own divinity and going to the next place. That said, I have been, in my private sessions, my private readings, I've been having a plethora of people who have been coming to get sessions with me because they feel like, and they felt this way their entire life. They felt like they want to go home, even though they were home.
Mm.
They would tell their parents as children, "I want to go home." Or there's some people who are here and they never really fit in. It just doesn't feel like they should be here. And I'm getting a lot of those people coming into the readings, into the private sessions. So I have a theory on this myself. But before I lay out my theory and taint your thoughts on what I've said so far, do you have any thoughts on what I've said so far?
I think this is part of the purpose of the human experience, to feel that disconnection so that we can also come into its opposite, the connection that we're all truly meant to feel in this human experience.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I do believe we come here to experience our separation from Source so we can find our way back.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm finding fascinating is not everybody is having that experience. There's been a certain group. I mean, there's been certain people that I've run into who've had that experience, and my theory is that right now, the veil between us and the Source is our fear veil is getting thinner. And I think as the veil gets thinner, people come from when we come here, when we're born, we've just come from the other side.
Mhm.
And I think some people just carry that subconscious memory of what the other side feels like and can't describe it and don't necessarily understand it. And they get here and they feel like they know what the world should feel like, and it just doesn't.
Mm.
So it doesn't feel like they're comfortable. It doesn't feel like they're home. It feels like they're away. I mean, and they're kind of lost because they come from a place of unconditional love, and they're immersed in a place that's filled with conditions on love. People put a lot of conditions on love. They go, a child in school gives positive reinforcement when they get A's and B's in school, right? And so the child learns at a very young age that to get positive from my parents, I have to meet these certain conditions.
Mhm.
And I think that we run into a lot of conditions, and then you get into to take it to the extreme level. When you get into abusive relationships, you will act this way, or I will give you a negative experience,
Mhm.
right? And so there's a condition. So I wonder whether there is a massive shift in humanity, and the people that I'm running into on these private sessions are people who are literally at the head of the game. Now, Dolores Cannon talks about the new wave of people coming in who are resonate a little differently. Now, uh, Dolores Cannon and I split ways on a couple different things, but I think that's an interesting idea. Um, and the question is, are they coming in this wave, like she says, to help change humanity by having that remembrance in themselves that
Mm.
to give them the urge to quote unquote bring heaven to earth?
Good question.
It's a good question. It's a deep topic, and I really think when you look back over the last 15, 20 years of metaphysics, New Age, spirituality, you find this huge influx of people who are really seriously on a quest,
Mhm.
trying to find their way, trying to find their belief systems, and
Mhm.
some of them go down entirely different New Age dogma, and some of them just feel lost. And I wonder whether what I noticed from 15 years ago to now, and how the people I'm running into are more, not only more compassionate, but they're definitely more engaged in self development.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering whether that is because humanity itself is shifting. Do you think humanity itself is shifting?
I definitely do. And I think it always has been, though. It's just like I was having dinner last night with an older couple, and, they're like, oh, poor kids today, this generation. And I said, yeah, but every single generation says that. Every single generation says, oh, what's the world coming to? We can go back hundreds of years and we're still saying the same thing. Oh, this generation is in trouble, and oh, the world is in trouble. Is it? I don't really think so.
I don't
And
think
I
so either.
think what you're noticing is people maybe not coming into this life awake, but waking up sooner,
Hmm.
or feeling that tension of this isn't quite right. What is quite right earlier than we used to? It used to be that some people would go through their whole life what I call sleepwalking. And now we're seeing younger people waking up and going, what? This world doesn't look like I think it should, or it doesn't feel like I think it could. What? How can I find that path? How can I find their way home? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because home is within
Right.
us.
Right.
And so I think it's just a matter of more people waking up sooner and questioning, and and access to information again is a huge thing. Access to different teachers, access to different ideas, access to just so much variation in spiritual practice and spiritual teachers that we're seeing it more. Not to say it wasn't there, but again, we have greater access to one another. And so we're able to see it more and sooner.
Another interesting common theme, and I'm just throwing this out just because it was an interesting common theme, with these specific individuals that I'm talking to, all of them prefer the company of animals to people because animals love unconditionally. And that's my opinion on it. But so I often find that the people who are most empathetic gravitate to animals over people because people are the ones who carry the conditions. Also, the coming, the idea of coming in, you're saying you thought that maybe they just awakened earlier. Where I would question that is in my son, when he told me at 6 years old that God is in everything and everyone, and we control the God part inside of us. And then his hormones kicked in, and he stopped being spiritual altogether. Right?
Well, wouldn't you say too, though, that is, when you're talking about people coming in, having a remembrance of oneness, that fades as we get older, and then we seek it again, because this is I feel like this is what we're kind of supposed to do, right? Lose our way, wander about, and then find our way again, because there's lessons in the being lost. And so
I totally agree with that aspect. I think that we are supposed to come here to experience and get lost in our own fears and anxieties, and then find our way back to the source of love.
My daughter was like your son, right? My oldest, when she was about 4 years old, was very, very upset, or not upset necessarily in a negative way, but just with a lot of emotion, saying, "Mommy, why am I here? What's my purpose at 4 years old?" And I said, "Honey, that question is your purpose. To find the answer is your purpose. That's for you. That's
beautiful. That's lovely." So just to clarify, so you believe this is a natural evolutionary process, as opposed to some big shift that's happening now,
or both.
Okay. Expand on that.
Or both, meaning that more and more souls are making a conscious decision to come in open. And therefore, we're seeing this flux of opening. And I still think that a lot of souls are like, I want to forget so I can remember. I always quote this children's book from Neil Donald Walsh, who, with the little soul in the sun, and where he's like, don't forget. If you forget this agreement we made, if you forget why we're going back down there, then we'll be stuck. We'll be stuck in this cycle, repeating it until you remember, maybe lifetime after lifetime. So I think it can be both. I think there is no one way, which is why we have this conversation on this podcast, right? About different things and about, I think there is no one way. I think all the ideas you have are correct, and all the ideas I have are correct. I think it's all happening simultaneously, and maybe even in different dimensions simultaneously, right? So maybe
all things are possible, right?
Exactly, right? So maybe those more open people, where we feel like the world is opening to new consciousness, is really a newer dimension that some people feel, some people resonate with or vibrate with, and some people don't yet.
Right. It's interesting. It's an interesting concept. Yeah. It's an interesting idea of different dimensions a lot, because I totally believe that, as Shakespeare would say, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. And in the Bible it says, "In my Father's house there are many mansions," meaning there are many ways to God, many ways to the source. And so when I look at those sort of beliefs, I totally understand that people can come in from all different angles. My only, I guess my only issue that I have with other people's beliefs is when they are fearful, and that fear hurts somebody else.
Hmm.
If they want to live in their own fear, that's totally cool. If that's what they want to do, not my job or anybody else's job to change their belief. But when their fear starts attacking somebody else, I get my little Irish up and don't you be saying that, boy. Right, right. I'll get that shillelagh and take you down. That was a really bad accent, but
That was a drunk Irish person.
yeah, at least it wasn't my Lucky Charms. They're always after me, Lucky Charms. Um, um, but the idea of there's so many ways to get to the source, but I believe, I believe you believe, that God is love, and
Absolutely.
and if God is love, then casting fear upon somebody else isn't a godly, quote unquote, godly thing to do.
Agreed. And what if, though, that is their purpose? What if their sole agreement was that they were going to provide contrast so
Right.
that you could see what love was?
Mm-hmm.
Because how do you know what love is if you don't see what it isn't?
Well, and that dovetails our first conversation into a new conversation, which is
We
which.
don't have a set topic. We can take it wherever we want it to
Well,
go.
and what's good about this topic is you and I completely disagree on this one.
Okay, cool. Let's find
Yeah.
out what happens
Yeah,
next.
yeah. Soul contracts.
Mhm.
I don't believe in them at all,
Cool.
and I know you do.
I do. Totally.
Right, right. And one of the reasons I don't believe in them at all is because it just, first of all, it doesn't feel right to me,
Mhm.
because it goes completely against free will while we're here.
Or
And
does it?
no, it totally does. If you're
Contracts
here,
can be broken, though.
whatever
That's what I'm
you,
saying, right?
yeah, well, but okay. The other reason I don't go that way is because I'm a guy who goes and does the research,
Hmm.
and I go hunting.
Hmm.
Soul contracts did not start happening in any text until the 1970s, and they had their heyday in the year 2003. But before the 1970s, you cannot find soul contracts as an idea in anything.
Well, and the interesting there is that I don't do any of the research.
Right, right.
So I didn't read about soul contracts, right?
Mhm.
That's something that I simply feel.
Yeah, but you are also, uh, you also we all are, everyone is affected by the people around us and their beliefs as well.
Uh,
Um, and so the question is, do the people around you believe in that and follow
Who
that?
knows?
Yeah. So for me, it just doesn't make logical sense on a logical level.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, tell me why you believe in it. Out of curiosity,
Okay.
besides that.
I'll tell you why I believe that. And one of the main reasons is the evidence of one particular person in my life who is unmovable. And so everyone else I know grows, evolves, changes, but this one person is just like solid concrete. And no matter what happens, maybe even if it seems like they're going to shift, they come right back to this solid concrete. They do not change. And so I feel like this is where my theory developed for myself of like, okay, I think this person agreed on some level to be this solid concrete wall of unshakable, unmovable, unchangeable contrast so that I could see my own growth, see my own change, see my own flexibility and willingness to evolve.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons why I think like, and probably it's a coping mechanism, right? I always say you get to make your own meaning, whatever supports you. Whatever supports you, you get to make your own meaning about life, spirituality, the world, people in your lives. It doesn't matter. And that might be a coping mechanism for me, but who cares? If that's the meaning I make out of it and it supports me, then cool. And so that's why I think there is no right answer and there is no right or wrong in any of the things that we're talking about,
Right.
because it's all whatever is working for you. And if it's working for you with love and you are working in love, then it's all good. Soul contract, no soul contract, who cares?
I agree. I completely agree with you. But the reason you kind of alluded to, maybe that's why they're here to do this, or why
Yeah.
we're here to, and so it kind of alluded to it. So I thought, and I knew that was a topic we disagreed on. But I respect your beliefs, as I'm sure you respect mine.
I
It's
totally
just,
do.
yeah, it's just there's no issue ever here. So in that regard, like
Well,
I
and
said,
I respect your beliefs because I'm literally saying everybody's beliefs are
right,
probably true
right,
for them.
right, exactly. And like I said, we recently had an interview we did where I got a little testy, I believe,
Got a little fired up.
a little fired up, and it was because something was said that was unloving on a show that represents you and I, and
Mhm.
and I don't care if you don't believe the same things I believe, but if you throw a little shade, I'm gonna defend love,
Yeah.
and because once again my Irish will get up. I'm not gonna do the accent this time. But but
Listeners.
I agree. If it's loving, if it's giving love, it's receiving love, it's sharing love. Beautiful. I don't care. I don't care what your beliefs are.
Mhm.
Second, you become attacking, harmful, or judgmental. I have an issue, and because I have to defend love, and I have to defend the person who's being attacked because they're the ones who can use support at that point, in my belief. Um, but I think soul contracts themselves, like I said, to me, it the idea of whatever you ask in God's name is granted if you have faith would be negated by a soul contract.
Tell me more.
Okay, so if before I come, we have decided we're going to do this, 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 and this, and then we get here and we have one conscious moment where we have thought, word, and deed, and the past is just a place where we collect present moment memories, and the future is just a place where we set goals for our next present moment. But we only have one present moment that has the three creative elements: thoughts, words, and deeds. And whatever you ask in God's name being I am, according to Moses, not I will be or I was. So even if you had a soul contract, you would have to then take the leap of there is no time, which I believe that could be totally the time that we deal with is a construct of man's mind.
Mm-hmm.
But in the idea of creating in the present moment, which is the Eckhart Tolle stuff, being very present.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a soul contract, that's in the past,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that's the second you got here, you started creating something, whatever it was you wanted. And so to me, it just doesn't make logical sense to me. But however, now here is one place that I do think that we could kind of meet somewhere on, rather than it being a contract, right?
Yeah.
I believe that when we are on the other side, immersed in the oneness of all knowledge and God,
Mm-hmm.
we could say, I'd like to, experience that potential.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to possibly try that potential. That looks hard. I'd like to try that. And basically, it puts you into a pathway of potential, as opposed to saying, I want to do this, and I'm going to do this with you, and we're going to make an agreement here to do that. We're going to have a contract here to do this thing together. That's where we kind of part, the formality of a contract.
Well, I don't know that I think that it's a formal contract, like that it's, set in the blood of your ancestors or what. It's just like, it is more like I'm a free flowing, loose kind of a, hippie lover of life. When I say contract, it's like, yeah, like, cool, I'll do that for you. You do that for me. And it's amendable. And it's not like the only thing it's not the only thing you're ever going to do. Right. Because
Right.
then if you what if you finish the job? Are you then done with life, or can you go on and do the next thing? What if it's just a transition? What if it's like, right? I think it's free and easy. And that I might go, hey, John, I'm going to do this for you, and then I'm going to go do my own thing. Cool.
Mm. That's an interesting way to look at it.
I don't think that anything is set in stone.
Right.
And so I think there is free will, even if you think, sure, I signed on the dotted line back in soul school, and now I'm coming to life, and I'm going to do this thing for you. And then, great. Now what? What's next? What's the next fun job I get to take? What's the next thing I get to do? And maybe it's do a similar thing for somebody else, because maybe that's, I'm a mover and shaker. It's kind of a soul, right? Maybe that's my soul's personality, if a soul has a personality.
Right. It's fascinating. Different schools of thought are fascinating to me. I have a guy who has become a regular in my membership site who is an expert on the law of one channeled material, and he and I have wonderful conversations. I don't believe 90% of what he says. But there are kernels in there that are just beautiful. The oneness of God and all the oneness and love and fear and everything that you and I talk about on a regular basis, the simplicity of that is in his belief. But then suddenly it's like, and this planet, when you evolve off of this planet, you go to that planet, and this planet was created because of this, and the aliens came and did this, and the blah, 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 and, and to me, it's like, I get it, and I respect your beliefs because they're your beliefs, and there's kernels that work for me, kernels that don't, but I thoroughly enjoy talking to him. I thoroughly enjoy talking to him just because of the fact that it's something I don't know a lot about, and to me it's just a beautiful thing to hear. But it comes down to judgment or discernment. Do you judge them for believing something different, or do you use your own personal discernment and take what fits for you and leave what fits for them?
Yeah, that's kind of how I've lived my spiritual life, right?
Yeah.
It's eclectic.
Me too.
It's just like, take it or leave it. And again, we both come back to the agreement that as long as it's loving, right? Take it or leave it, as long as it's loving. And we can all, if love is the foundation, we could all get along. And you're right, there's hate and fear in the world, and judgment in a negative way. Judgment's not always negative, right? We have to make judgments all the time. Do I stop at that yellow light, or do I go? Do I say hello to the stranger, or do I walk away? We judge all the time.
Personal judgments for living life, but a judgment of another is, that's where you
in a negative way.
Yeah. It's I had a thought process that was going somewhere, and I just kind of dropped out of my head right now. It's it fell off of my head just like my hair.
Well, you don't have the hair to contain it.
Yeah,
so
that gives you a little grip. And I don't have I don't have a grip on reality anymore. So we talked about.
Not that he's judging bald people.
No, I would never judge a bald person, because it was the greatest thing I ever did was shaving my head. It was awesome. I went from looking like Ben Franklin to looking like Telly Savalas, and I'm very pleased that I did so. So I get asked about soul contracts all the time. So this is why I have a real concept about it, because I've really thought about it.
Yeah.
The reason I get asked about soul contracts all the time is they ask me if my reincarnation is a soul contract with Jeshua, Jesus, right? So, and they're like, "Is this a soul, you and he have a soul contract?" And I believe it goes against what he taught too, but I get asked about it all the time, and I get people come to me and say, my soul contract says blah 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 blah. And but I want to do blah 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 blah.
See, this is where I'm like, so do blah 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 blah.
No, do blah 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 number 2, right? Right,
Yeah, like,
exactly.
so what? You're not going to be struck down and sent to, the bottomless pit of despair if you decide to do something different. See, that's where
Right.
I think like a contract is a silly thing. It's a silly concept. And that maybe that's why I typically call it a soul agreement. I don't think I've ever called it a soul contract. I always
Right.
call it a soul agreement. Like,
Right.
you agreed to do this one thing, but that doesn't limit you from doing other things.
Right.
And so
Words are
that's
imperfect.
just rigidity in thinking, though, once more, right? Which is what I actually rebel against, that rigidity in thinking. And that's why I'm kind of like for everything and saying, yes, if that's what you believe, you are correct.
Right.
Because who's to say it isn't correct? Not
Right.
me. None of
Not
us
me.
really know.
That's why like when they talk about reincarnation, they ask me a whole bunch of questions about reincarnation. The first thing I say is, I don't know what reincarnation is. I have no. Why would I know that? I know what Hindus believe. I know what Buddhists believe. I knew that ancient Jewish people believed it. I knew that I can find references to it in the Bible. I can find it, but they all have different beliefs about it. So I often say, that's why my website's called John of New, not John of Old. Because it's like I don't understand what reincarnation is, and so I'm not vain enough or dumb enough to say I have the answer that I don't have.
Right. You could only say, this is what I think.
Right.
It is.
And I often say, I could be tapping into those memories in the oneness of God, but I might be one of a million people who are doing that. There might be a million people in the world with the exact same memories I have. I know that people come to me all the time, and soul contracts. I get asked a lot about soul contracts because of, have you connected with the other apostles yet? What's your mission while you're here?
Oh.
I get that daily, right? And
Yeah.
it's so fascinating to me because they think we all have these big giant soul contracts and missions that we have to attain while we're here, and I think we're here to experience, as opposed to do missions.
Yeah. The mission thing feels, again, constricted and laborious, and I just don't think that's what we're coming here for.
Right.
I feel like it's supposed to feel expansive and adventurous.
I love that you said it that way, because it goes back to our first topic. Those people, quote unquote, coming in with this feeling, they're not on a mission.
Right.
They're I just think that as humanity is shifting, the veil's getting thinner, and that's my just take on it.
When you say the veil's getting thinner, do you believe that it's the veil that allows us in a human experience to communicate more easily with those in spiritual form, in spirit form?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think it's pretty well documented that that's happening.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that seems like a yes, because and it still could be, though, that we have more access to it and more, like, we're able to see other people's experience more. Who knows?
Right.
But yeah, more and more people are, it seems like anyway, able to communicate, able to receive, able to channel, all of that.
One of the things that I find most fascinating about this vein that we've gone down here is I've been watching on YouTube. There's a show about children who remember reincarnating, and I'm watching all these stories of these young innocent children who have all this knowledge of the past life. But the cool part is, a lot of them have memories of crossing over, being told that they're going into a new mom, and and all these shifts, and these experiences of going over and experiencing God. And one kid, the grandmother was like, "Why is he talking about God? We're not religious." But he came back. This kid was talking about he talked to God, right? Yeah. And so to me, that to me is really interesting. But I also think that the in the Bible they talk about bringing heaven to earth, right? I just basically think the spiritual plane, dimension, awareness, resonance, however you want to think of it, I think we're just getting closer to being able to experience it. And, when in my life, I snapped a picture of a church in Norway, and Jeshua's face showed up in the picture. And why is that? I think because the veil is getting thinner.
Mm-hmm.
The space between here and there is a little closer. And I always go back to the belief in where the veil theory comes from. It comes from Sufism, which is a sect of Islam. They believe that God is on one side of a veil and we're on the other side of the veil, and the veil is our fear and our life is a struggle against the veil.
Mm.
And that's where the original term veil comes from that we all talk about. But the idea of it is that there is this. What does a veil do? A veil it muddles our vision. It makes things unclear.
Mm-hmm.
And when you pull a veil away, you see better, you experience more. And I think that I really think that humanity is going to that next level. Now, my law of one guy would go into, yes, this planet is evolving, and when the people of who aren't in alignment with us on this planet that are evolving now, they will go to another planet, and they will have a planet of darkness or whatever it is they're going through over there. But the people who are evolving this planet here, and I think that for me, when I hear him talk about it, I know that every planet in this universe is made of the same atoms as the air that I'm breathing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all just an energy event. So to me, I think it's thinking very physical in something that's very non-physical.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that.
So
That, I mean, it just, a lot of my beliefs are because of the way they feel.
yeah, that's
And
discernment.
like I try it on, and that one doesn't fit.
Right.
That one just doesn't fit.
Right,
But
right.
I would love to know what our listeners and viewers think about all of this. I would love to hear and read your comments and tell us what you think, because clearly, disagreement with respect is totally welcome. And we're both open to opening our minds and expanding our hearts and hearing what you have to say, and just to join in the conversation, because John was right. This was an interesting one.
and for our listeners, I would say we are in the middle of locking down an interview that we're both pretty excited about, and we're not going to reveal who it is yet. But when it is locked down and we have that in the can, we'll make that announcement of who that is. We're pretty excited about it. So
very excited.
You want to take us out of here, young lady?
All right. Yeah, we thank you for listening to us just chat and discover each other's beliefs and feelings. And thank you for riding with us. And again, share your thoughts. We want to hear them. We want to read them. And let's just together bring this world into a more loving space, because I think that's what we're all here for. So we will speak to you again next week, and we thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Please leave all comments on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page or beneath our videos on YouTube.